What's up, everybody? To be fair, I don't think anybody even knows I'm live yet, so let's wait for that first. Yeah, bear with me in a second, guys. Just going to stop sharing this on the social medias and whatnot. Hey, Len. Nice to see you, man. Hope you're having a lovely birthday, my man. I'm really sorry I'm about to ruin it. But happy birthday, Len. Hope you're having a good one, my friend. Brian Glennon, he lives! I am alive, apparently. You would never have guessed, but I am indeed. Give me a minute, I'm just catching up still. Also wait a little bit before we get viewers in here before I really start talking. But yeah, I'm live right now. Hope you guys are good. I guess is it story time with Dre? Nothing will ever beat the booty call story. I haven't really got a good one for you. To be honest, like I lead a relatively boring life by comparison. That's about as exciting as life normally gets for me. To be honest with you, so sadly, I don't think I have a story for you on this one. But if you want a good example of a story, you can go back on my old YouTube channel, Harrison101, and you can find the story of me going to the Zoom charity auction. That was pretty fun. The time I met Bernie Eccleston, met Damon Hill, met Christian Horner, Claire Williams, Rosanna Tennant from pole position. But a couple of decent adventures, to say the least, from my older YouTube days. But I'll talk about that in a minute. Len saying, cheers, mate. Spent all day playing Dirt 4 and watching cricket. It's been glorious. Sounds like a good day, man. Glad you're having a good one. Red Bull looking decent in Baku. They are indeed, Evan. They are indeed. Hi, Matt. Nice to see you. I'm still. Hi, Cameron. Brendan's here. Hi, Brendan. Nice to see you. Well, I'm still repairing my sleep schedule after live blogging all of Le Mans in a Facebook group. Cameron, you're a mad, mad man, my friend. You are crazy. But more power to you. I only watched about 20 minutes of Le Mans because I was working an all-day shift during the Saturday it was on, and then I was just really tired on Sunday mornings. I just couldn't be asked to sit down and watch the end of it. But I watched the last 20 minutes or so. So obviously seeing Porsche win pretty comfortably in the end was, you know, not fun. But the Aston Martin Corvette battle in GTE was fantastic. Jordan Taylor very nearly pulling that one out of the fire and then getting a puncher on the final lap is pretty frigging cruel, no matter which way you slice it. Going down to Daytona on Thursday, you want me to send pics and stuff on the M101 fan page? Yeah, go for it, man. Well, why would I ever say no to that? Go for it, my friend. So yeah, have a good one, my friend. Daytona sounds pretty sick. Rest in peace, what little Toyota's hope was left. Oh, man. Kind of sucks to be Toyota, doesn't it? Last year, they had the cruelest finish of any Le Mans probably ever. And then this year, really through no fault of their own, just all three cars get hit with terminal shit. And one of them being the Marshall mix-up that, you know, was seen around the world. Just awful. But, you know. Hope you guys having a good one, though. But Hamilton is already blaming the tyres. Of course. Of course he is, Zoe. Of course he is. Oh, Boyota. Toyota. Hi, Ryan. Nice to see you, man. Yeah, so I'm going to catch up. I'll tell you about a couple of things that's been going on with me, and then, you know, we'll inevitably talk some sports and talk about, you know, F1 and, you know, all the motorsport I've missed and some Q&A in there. We'll throw that in there too. We'll have some fun for the next couple of hours. But just so you know, in case you haven't already and you missed it, there's a brand new episode of Motorsport 101 out right now, episode 91. This is called Literal Loophole, and it's a Le Mans special with Ryan King, Matt Conero, of course, who's in the chat right now, and Josh Bond as well, making his Motorsport 101 debut. So check it out if you haven't already. The Coalition of Chaos survived for a second straight week, unfortunately. I'll talk about why in a minute, but stick to sports, Dre. Shut up. Shut up, Brandon. But you know, yeah. So you haven't listened to that, go do so already. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the show despite me not being on there. Some of you may have enjoyed it more in my absence, who knows? But I hope you guys enjoyed it. We're enjoying episode 91 as well. Again, I promised I will be back for next week's show. That is a guarantee. I'm only working 3 days next week. I'm actually not working as many hours as I normally am, but I've got hours recurred. So to basically explain why I've not been on the last 2 weeks, layman's terms, running the bookies is hard, basically. It's harder than people think. And my full-time job is it can be a bit of a bastard sometimes. And the reality of it is that my shop used to have a team of 5 people. So, you know, you had a lot of luxury when it came to plugging guys in and out for managing and things like that, things of that nature as well. If anything was to happen to a shop, you could have guys on relief that could plug in and all that. And unfortunately, I've had rotors change around a lot in the last couple of days. The last couple of weeks, I should say. I've had to deal with a lot of rotor changes where I've had to come in on days I wouldn't normally come in. Like the reason this week, for example, was that I worked Monday evening, which is when we normally record the show, and I was in all day Tuesday, so we couldn't, because Tuesday is our backup day to record. If we can't record on a Monday night, we'll record on a Tuesday. And Tuesday I was working a 13-hour shift, so like 8:45 in the morning until 10:10 at night. So it's basically 13 and a half hours. So that's happened the last 2 weeks. So I had to cover other people. because my shop used to have 5 people in it. It's now got 3 people in it because one of them's left the job because she's got her dream job, which is being an occupational therapist. She was studying that on the NHS, so more power to her. Apparently, they're making like 23K a year, which is very nice indeed for a 21-year-old coming straight out of university. That's not bad going at all. And on the other side of that, another one of my cashiers got suspended for basically leaving the shop counter unmanned. What can you do? So my shop team that used to be 5 people is now 3 people, and it means that it's made life on the job a little bit more difficult. Revolution is coming. The revolution will be podcasted. Evening, Tom. Nice to see you. Hi, Henry. Nice to see you as well, mate. So yeah, that in layman's terms is why I've not been on the show for the last 2 weeks. M101 has been around for 91 episodes now, and that's the first time I think I've ever missed 2 consecutive shows, and that's never happened. I'm annoyed that it had to happen, but unfortunately, my real job comes first for now, and there was no way around it, really. So I apologize to all those guys that were expecting me on the show. Yeah, that's the thing, Len. Like, they can bring people in from other shops. The problem is that the entire relief department was busy as well. Like, a lot of the relief guys are also on like 30 or 25-hour contracts, so they have to get their hours in as well. And our shop doesn't take priority because our shop's one of the least busy on the cluster. There's a couple of shops that are right next to me or in within 20 minutes of me that take 300, 400, 500 bets a day. We only take like maybe 50 or 60 bets a day over the counter. So we're not busy. Our shop can easily run an entire shift without a cashier. So without a second person for a 6-hour shift or what have you. So in some cases, it's just me on my own running the entire shop for 13 and a half hours. I might call somebody in from another job just to stand by with me for half an hour while I take a lunch break, but that's about as far as it goes. So that can be difficult. But yeah, that's basically the layman's terms as to why I've not been in. I feel like I owe it to you guys to at least explain why I'm not around so much. And you know me, I love doing the show, and it pains me whenever I'm not on it because we have such a laugh when we record it. I mean, I don't know if it comes across that way when you listen to us, but we love what we do. We enjoy it so much. So to have it when I'm not around, it feels like I'm empty inside a little bit because it's such an important part of my week. It's even weirder because it's not like I was off completely. I was on Bike Live the last 2 weeks as well. So I was on the alternative show with Lewis talking bikes. So that was still on there for that because I've had Thursdays and Fridays off still. But the Mondays and the Tuesdays have always been packed in. It's just been unfortunate. But yeah, hopefully soon I'll be back. Again, I'll be back most likely this week, and hopefully after that things will return to some form of normal. I need a 4th person in my shop, really, just someone that's working part-time, just ideally, so that, you know, things can run a little bit smoother. If you listen to Bike Live, which is coming out, I think either tomorrow or Sunday, I'll explain a little bit. Well, the shops have 3 power cuts as well in the last 4 days. It's been bonkers where our substation is basically a pile of shit in the area. And basically my shops had 3 power cuts in 4 days. 2 of them in 1 day. Like 9 p.m. at night, one shop had a power cut. Brutal, to say the least. But yeah, anyway, back to the chat. I've ranted enough about my own plight. Yeah, but it is crazy. You guys are mentioning it in the chat. It is crazy that we're close to 100 episodes now. Like, it's going to be, I think, 2 months from now, roughly. I think it's going to be last week in August, I think, / first week in September, where we're going to have the 100th episode of Motorsport 101, which I'm still not sure what to even do for that episode right now, to be honest with you. It's been a long time coming, but it's amazing that a show that was a university project and was only ever meant to last 10 episodes We've done 100, nearly like 90 plus episodes of Motorsport 101, you know, 17 bike lives, a couple of the specials in there as well. It's been crazy to say the least, but yeah, it's going to be a cool milestone to hit. I'm still kind of thinking on ideas of what to do for episode 100 or 101 even, be given that, you know, it's a significant number for us. So who knows? If anybody's got ideas, feel free to let me know. I'm more than willing to listen to feedback and whatnot and see what happens. So, you know, I'm all down for ideas and whatnot. Should get Johnson back for the 100th. That was not a bad idea, because Johnson's such an important part of our history. The problem is he's too busy ogling British wrestlers these days and thinking of 115 things to do that isn't exactly what he wants to do. And he's busy over on Armbar Arcade. If you haven't already, check out his Armbar Arcade channel. It's just him let's playing games for fun, and he really enjoys it. So, you know, the reason he left us was because he had his mindset on other projects, and he felt bad that he couldn't commit as much time as he would have wanted to Motorsport 101, which is a shame because the reboot was originally his idea. Like, me quitting YouTube full time and me picking up Motorsport 101 as a podcast full time was Johnson's idea. He's the one that encouraged me to do it, and you know, a year goes on, and you know, he's dropped off the wagon with motorsport, so to speak. I think he's kind of fallen out of love with it, but he's kind of fallen back into pro wrestling again. So, you know, make of that what you will. Obviously gutted that he's not around on a regular basis, but I'm happy that he's happy, you know. The selfish person in me would be delighted, you know, to have him back, but at the same time, he's happier, so that's great. Checking the chat. Oh yeah. Yeah, talking about Jodie and Palmer in the chat. Like, I did see the BBC Radio 5 Live interview we did with Jenny Gow yesterday, and he came across like a total arsehole. You know, saying things like, oh, you know, why have things been a struggle for you? And then he basically says to Jenny, yo, you tell me, basically, why I've struggled so much and what's caused it. And then he basically said that, oh, how do you survive? Like, how do you focus on the next weekend? And he said, well, annoying interviews don't help. And I think he was an arsehole for that. Like, listen, I'm working in media is a loveless job, and I openly admit that from the time being. It's like you're asking to get shit on from a great height. But Jenny Gow asked like totally reasonable questions, and Jodian was basically a prick with really prickly, dead stoppy sort of answers to very valid and reasonable questions. Jodian's probably been the worst performing driver in the grid on the grid this season, and you know, he's taking his frustration out on interviews. Like, how's that going to help? Really? We'll have to wait and see. But you know, it's just a shame, really, because the thing is, I don't think Palmer's all that bad a personality, but he just came off really badly in that interview. Just disappointing to hear him come out with those sort of comments. But I think you might go. I mean, people have been talking about Robert Kubica coming back, and if Kubica really can drive an F1 car for that long, like a full race distance without being compromised on his left arm, which you can clearly tell in pictures, he has muscle degeneration in his left hand that's never going to come back. I think some of his muscles were just too badly damaged at this point to ever resemble something normal. But if Kubica can really drive a full race distance for an hour and a half at a time, then why not give him another shot? He was always a great driver, just somewhat obviously self-inflicted to a degree, but I think he was on the brink of being an elite driver in Formula One. It just never quite worked out for him. But I think it can't be much worse than what Palmer's producing right now. So we'll have to wait and see where that's concerned. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that goes. But I'm not the biggest fan of Julian Palmer, and not only the way he's carried himself, but the way he's driven. I mean, as Glenn quite rightly says, no one should be qualifying a second behind their teammate. That's alarming by any measure. And especially when Hulkenberg, I think, has had a very good season, maybe the best since 2013 for Hulkenberg in terms of overall quality. Like Hulkenberg's like the most. I think it's a lot of people are critical on Hulkenberg and say he's the most average driver in the field. But if you're getting beaten that badly by Hulkenberg, then that kind of says a lot to me. A guy that we basically all threw under the bus for not being Sergio Perez. So I'm not even sure how good Sergio is at this point, but you know, we'll have to wait and see. I don't know if Kubica can handle the more physically demanding F1 cars in 2017 now, because these cars are pulling 6Gs through some of the corners and they're much more physically demanding. The G-forces are higher, the cornering speeds are higher, so it's more physically demanding to get around it. Because Kubica drove a 2011 car. That's not relevant anymore. Those cars are out of date and by a massive degree. So you'd think putting him in FP1s and FP2s would make more sense in the long run. But then they've got Sergei Sorokin for that right now, who's their third driver. They've got Oliver Rowland, who's in GP2, right? Well, I'm supposed to say F2 right now. And he's looking like a top contender in F2 behind Charles Leclerc. So Renault's got options. I like people that are kicking down the door for Kubica. I think I also have to realize that, you know, Renault's got plenty of options. Like they've got two very, very solid drivers in there. You know, have to wait and see, I guess. But I'm not, you know, have to wait and see. Also, by the way, it's worth mentioning, YouTube now has Super Chat in there as well. So I've enabled that on the channel. So if you really, if the stream gets really busy and your comment wants to see a priority, you can pay a little bit of money to make it top priority, and I can read it. But I read all the comments on here anyway, so it probably won't even be a factor. Zoe's asking, Christian claiming Max's Canada start was the best Red Bull ever had. Thoughts? Whatever. I mean, it's like Christian Horner is basically a hype man at this point more than a decent team principal. Because they're like, basically Red Bull runs itself at this point. You've got Daniel Ricciardo, who is a top 3 driver in the field. Verstappen is the golden goose. They have one, if not two, very good drivers underneath them in Toro Rosso right now. Carlos Sainz, I think, is ready for the big time already. And, you know, Verstappen, I mean, okay, sure, he dived down the outside and gained 3 places. He also forced contact with another car and basically almost ruined Sebastian Vettel's race before it had even gotten started. I mean, sure, it was a great start, but it wasn't clean or anything. Like, I don't rate a start where you've made contact with another car. Like, he didn't have to hit him, but he did, and so it's not all that great. But not to mention, that wasn't even Verstappen's best start this season. He started China in 18th and was like 7th by the end of lap 1. So, like, I don't know what Christian Horner's been smoking, but whatever you think of like Horner, I think he just toots his own horn more than anything else. I think he's just a bit of a buster, to be honest with you. We'll have to wait and see, but you know, I can't watch F2 tomorrow, unfortunately, Henry. I am at work unless they stream it on YouTube. I might be able to get my Amazon Fire TV stick to make it work, but I'm at work all day tomorrow, so that probably won't happen. Hi, EJ Motorsport. Nice to see you. JCR saying, who is the best driver, in your opinion, who hasn't won the Drivers' Championship? Sterling Moss is up there, most likely. Rubens Barrichello was a great driver. Felipe Massa was pretty good. David Coulthard was pretty good. Coulthard doesn't get enough credit. I think Coulthard's pretty underrated. He just seems a bit of a dick as a human being, but like DC has always been a good driver. Then saying Christian needs to stop wanking to Max and realize Daniel is just as good as not better. See, that's the funny thing about it. Like, as much as Daniel Ricciardo is the respected top tier guy in that team, Max has had the better season so far. Like, Max has definitely improved this season to the point where he's actually given Ricciardo a good run for his money. That's the problem. Like Ricciardo's leverage in that team is already starting to slip. And if Max keeps this going for the rest of the season and he ends up beating Ricciardo, what are we all going to say then? Like, is Ricciardo expendable? Which is crazy when you consider that Ricciardo was a driver of the year contender in 2014 and he was a driver of the year contender in 2016. Like, he was amazing in both those seasons. But he's also 2-1 as a driver since he got into, or he's 3-1 as a driver since he got into Red Bull. 2014, he beat Vettel. He lost to Kvyat in 2015. He beat Verstappen in 2016. So he's 2-1 as a driver so far in the top tier. If Verstappen beats him and he goes 2-2, it's a little bit more questionable just how good Ricciardo is. And he's kind of in a critical spot in his career because he's 28 next month, I think. And he's in his prime, but he's in a car that's never going to win him a championship. So we'll have to wait and see. Well, I've got the Navianis blocked. My bad. Let's have a look here. Carlos Sainz needs a top seat. He's scoring top 6 finishes in a bloody Toro Rosso. Completely agree. Bloody hell, Andrew Bannister saying, like, thoughts on Vettel. All Sky is saying that Vettel has signed a pre-contract at Mercedes. Yeah, sure, whatever. Where have Sky gotten that source from? Ferrari has greatly improved from 15 to 16 and are actually a threat for both titles this season, the way it's going. I don't see why all of a sudden, for like Vettel, who it was his dream to drive for Ferrari, would suddenly jump out the moment that Ferrari, looking like they're actually really close to overtaking Mercedes as a car. He's led the championship for the entire calendar pretty much so far, and he's won 3 out of the first 7 rounds. So I don't see why he'd suddenly want to jump ship to Mercedes. I don't see what you gain in that right now. I'm not even sure. I'm not even sure that Mercedes is a better car right now. That's how crazy it is. So I don't see why he'd suddenly want to do that, but we'll have to wait and see. Luke Higgins saying, do you think Lewis Hamilton will retire? I agree with it to give more drivers a chance. You know, Lewis doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would stick around longer than he feels he has to. Like, I know Nico Rosberg was like a surprising retirement when he bad episode, by the way. When he retired the end of last season at 31. I mean, Hamilton's 32 in January. Like, he's coming towards the twilight of his career anyway. Like, not many top-tier guys are still that great into their mid-30s. Often there's a new young'un that comes along that's going to beat everybody. And it could be Max for all we know, but Lewis... You can see that Lewis has made his money. I mean, the guy owns a £25 million private jet. He's making $40 million a year at Merckx right now. He's already one of the 6 or 7 best drivers of all time. He's a statistical monster by any measure. He's up there with Senna, Prost, Clark, Stewart. He's probably the greatest British driver in F1 history, or certainly he's certainly in the conversation. He could retire tomorrow and he'd be a top 8 driver of all time at absolute worst. So, like, Lewis has talked about it. He's got other endeavors. He makes good money on endorsements. He wants to make music. He's got famous friends. He could do whatever he wants. And if he feels like F1 just isn't worth it anymore, then he could easily move on. So I wouldn't rule it out by any stretch. He always seems like the sort of guy that, you know, could move on before, you know, maybe the wheels fall off in terms of ability. And that may not even happen. Like, Fernando Alonso is still like one of the best drivers on the planet, and he's 36, I think, next month. So it kind of says it all, really. As long as it doesn't take a Grand Slam record from Jim, I don't care. Lol, Zoe. But yeah, absolutely right, Len. He's a marketer's wet dream. Like, he is a transcendent figure in F1. We've not had a guy like Lewis since Schumacher, a guy that is recognizable and is a known figure outside of F1 that can make money on other platforms. He was on 60 Minutes. He's done James Corden's show in the US. He's done a media tour over there. He's a recognizable face, and he is the biggest name F1 has had, especially in this social media era now, where it's easier than ever to be a star and be relevant. And despite that, Lewis is that guy. Yeah, sorry about that, guys. Internet played up a little bit there. Lewis Hamilton featuring KSI, Nico's a nightmare. Yeah, sorry about that. Internet played up a little bit on that one. But whoops, who pulled the plug? Should be back now. But oh god, it's Chase Carey. Yeah, don't worry, guys. I'm still here. I'm still alive. I promise. Yeah. Don't worry, guys. I'm still here. But yeah, just got to put my mug back in. Yeah, there we go. But yeah. It's the coalition. They're invading. Yeah, my internet still, my bandwidth gets a bit sketchy sometimes. My apologies for that. Lance is having a decent weekend, isn't he? It's about time. Oh, cheers, Mum. Xbox One or PS4? I have an Xbox One, so that kind of wins by default, really. My brother's got the PS4. But who's looking forward to Baku? I don't give a shit about this weekend of F1. I really don't. Like, Baku is like dead to me at this point. It's a shit Grand Prix. It's a shit circuit in a part of the world that is blatantly corrupt. It's a dictatorship, and there's a shit ton of poverty around Baku. I don't want to support this Grand Prix with all due respect. So, you know, it's just blah. Oh, it's clashing with the Paris E-Prix next year. Delightful. So that's a thing. I am interested in the Xbox One X. For what it's worth, I do kind of want to get it. I've got an Xbox One S, a 1 terabyte one, and I'm just sitting here thinking, how much on top is it going to take for a trade-in? Like, that's what worries me, because it's like, I want to upgrade, but at the same time, as I've got a 4K TV, and, you know, it would be nice to upgrade and, you know, enjoy the extra powerful consoles, you know, native 4K and all that shit. But, like, I'm thinking I'm probably going to have to add 250 quid on top of an Xbox One S to make it work, because the new console's coming out at 450. Like, first of all, I just say, I think 450 for a games console in 2017 is ridiculous. Like, that is stupid money. Like, you can get a really freaking good TV for that sort of money. You can get, like, a year's worth of Sky Sports for that sort of money. I think it's bonkers that a console's coming out at 450 quid, but... But yeah, I have to wait and see. Let's have to wait and see how that goes. But yeah, like, anything more than 300 is a joke. Like, you can build a really frigging good PC for 500 quid these days. My PC was like 530, and only because I had to pay an extra 70 quid for Microsoft, you know, Windows 10. But the core components were like 470. So for that to be a thing, and a games console which is nowhere near as versatile for 450 quid is a joke. Don't start, Luke. Not a fan of Donald Trump, to say the least, Luke. That's as far as I'll go on that one. I don't want to get too political on here. I did that last time and people turned off in droves. Oh, yeah. Palmer's comment about street circuits and then binning it in P2 was gold. Gold. Gonna say NASCAR on a road course this weekend. Interested? No. You're just saying, I need a trim, bro. Yes, I do. What's your point? I can't be asked. All right. I do look. I am a little bit tired. Like, I'm not. Like, it's kind of odd because I worked a lot of hours last week. I worked 45 hours last week, and you know, it has a habit of catching up on you after a little while, and I'm the sort of person that just struggles to switch off a lot of the time. So, you know, it's tricky every once in a while to juggle everything. I mean, like I said, I work 38 hours a week. A lot of the time, it feels like a lot more than that. I only work over 4 days, which is lucky. So, on one side, you work less days, which is nice, but on the other end of the coin, your hours are a lot more congested. So instead of like an 8-hour shift like you normally would, it's a third. I do 2 13-hour shifts in a week. So it does add up on you after a while. And I'm the sort of person that, 1, can't switch off, and 2, dedicates a lot of hours to podcast stuff, whether it be written articles, videos, or just editing, or, you know, just parts of the podcast and the logistics with that as well. So get a mohawk. Are you trying to get blocked? Pokey head. But you know, it's just, yes, it's the nature of the job, really. There's trade-offs. I mean, on one side, only working 4 days is nice. On the other side, I don't have a social life. Like, Like, I've got a date for next weekend, and that was like a miracle in its own right. That, like, oh my god, Dre got a date with somebody. Holy shit. Hopefully there'll be no stories regarding that, to say the least. Don't follow hair advice on the internet. No, I don't do that. The pink team figured out how to get pinker. Yeah, I like the new fire suits. I think Force India's new suits are nice. I find it funny they had the orange ones for the pit crew had the orange ones for so long as well. It's like the change was so last minute they couldn't prepare themselves to get everything ready for it. It's kind of funny. But I've always liked the pink, so you know, I embrace that. So yeah, you know, stuff to look forward to. Maddy Pinkham. Yes, Maddy Pinkham is very pretty indeed. Good lord. We made many jokes on the early days of the podcast, the time that Maddy Pinkham was seen on the beach in a bikini, and like I remember it was me, King, and Athlete VG from on his show Finish Line, and yeah, it was yeah, very nice to say the least. Every time she's on TV, Brother Ryan just shouts out MILF all the time because he's a terrible human being. But Andrew Bannister, is United's transfer business or non-existent transfer business pissing you off? It's definitely pissing me off. I've even forgotten about Lindelof. Well, that's the thing. Teams don't normally move this early on transfers. And like it's even weirder when you consider the fact that there's a Confederations Cup going on right now with a lot of international players that are over there in Russia right now playing in that, like Ronaldo, like, you know, like a lot of the Chilean players like Sanchez, who's been rumored a lot to go to maybe Man City or Bayern Munich. So there's a lot of shit going on over there. And I'm surprised like clubs like Man City have moved this quickly. It's like they are really salty about last year not working out. I mean, Man City was a bust last year. There's no measure for it. They got knocked out in the last 16 in the Champions League. They barely got back in by finishing in fourth in the league, and they didn't win any major domestic trophy. So, like, I'd argue Man City's season was worse than ours. So, I'm glad they're moving quickly. He's here. Ryan King goes in just to chime in. That episode of Finish Line is the most listened to of either podcast. Kind of says it all, really. So that's how I made my name. I made my name off that episode of Finish Line. We basically rated all the F1 drivers' girlfriends on a scale of 1 to 10. I would never do that now, but we were young and dumb back then. It was fun. Let's just say I still kind of have a girl crush on Vettel's girlfriend, Hannah Prater. It's really annoying. Actual value varies. Also rumored to be bidding like 700 billion for Mbappe. Yeah, that's crazy. But Cars 3. I'm not bothered about Cars 3. Overrated series. Dre and King in their Jennifer Beck's crush days. We don't speak of those days, Vic. We don't speak of those days. Although I do agree it was a better time. Oh. How do you have 101 videos? What type of videos do you make? Why don't you look on the channel, Poochie Head? You know, like... like they're all there waiting for you. They're all they're mostly podcast highlights, one-off videos like the Dre Brief series, and a bunch of Google Hangouts like this one. Yeah, apparently Cars 3 is all right. That's news to me. Good for them. Although, I'll say this much. The video TM Marduk made when he parodied Cars 3 with an F1 2016 pit stop was hilarious. I'll give the man his due, even though me and him don't necessarily speak eye to eye these days. Best not say anything more about that in case certain people find it and show it to him and act like your fucking subscriber count is the be all and end all on the internet. I'm not saying I wasn't in the wrong for that day, but I really do hope you live in life and I hope your ego is not that fragile where you react like that in response. But I thought TMM was your best mate. Listen, like we were decent mates about 4 years ago, like back when his channel was like 2.5 to 10K, but he's now at like what 210, 220. Good for him. Like, I'm delighted for him. I'm glad that like the F1 channels in general have got at least one guy they can lean on as a genuine, like, you know, mid-tier YouTube channel. And the sad reality is that like silver play buttons are like mid-tier now, like 100 to 200K. And we've only got 2 guys really in that space. And I think, if I'm being honest with you, I think Matty G would have gotten up there without question. I think Matt would have been like the next enormous F1 YouTuber if he hadn't quit when he did to go to WTF1. But he's living the dream right now, so good for him. Even if he called me a cunt after the TMM Arctic incident, which I wasn't a fan of. And saying that after the comments came out, he unfollowed me on Twitter, called me a see you next Tuesday, and said he'll never go anywhere in life with that attitude. When I'm a William Hill shop manager making 20K a year. It's like, whatever, man. Like, there's more to life than the internet. Like, I'll never stop telling people this. Like, I hate that F1 YouTube mentality is that everything in life revolves around subscriber count when it shouldn't ever have to come down to that. Like, maybe it's my age. I mean, I'm 25 in August, but it's like realizing that YouTube wasn't the be-all and end-all was the best thing to ever happen to me. Because when I was like in my prime, I was like obsessed with sub counts and trying to upload videos every day. That shit's not healthy. It just isn't. And unfortunately, the reality of it is that YouTube now favors systems where it benefits you more if you upload frequently. And I just can't do that. Like, I have a life. I can't afford to do that right now. And you know, the people that can, more power to them. But you know, I just can't be that guy. I just can't do it, and I don't want to do it because, like, towards the December 2016 or 2015 and early 2016, I was sitting down in my bedroom, breaking down in tears, asking myself, "Why am I still doing this?" I felt like I was wasting myself. I felt like I was wasting my potential. I felt miserable. Like, being an F1 YouTuber literally drove me to one of my lowest points in life. And, you know, if the people that are still making these vids are getting something out of it, they're making decent money, and you know, that fame and publicity is enough to challenge them, the more power to them. I applaud them for being able to do that, but I just can't do it. And, you know, it's a lot more fun that way. But yeah, I do genuinely think that the F1 space is now completely generic. It's become like FIFA now, where where everything is just so arbitrary now, and it's like everyone just plays Ultimate Team and just throws thousands of pounds at pack openings to look for that one highlight moment they can then clickbait and thumbnail and post on YouTube, where everyone's doing the same thing pretty much. And I think the F1 space kind of fell into that trap a couple of years ago, where it was like, we're all going to try so hard to be different, we all end up exactly the fucking same. And again, I give props to Arav, who, you know, is still a good friend of mine, and Arav is still a top tier dude, and he has incredible production value. And I'm glad he's got his silver play button now, and he's over 100K, because I think he's the best video maker in this space by a country mile. And if I had my way, he'd have 1 million subs, because the guy is a trendsetter for this community, and he has set the standard for everybody else to try and get to, and no one's close to that. You know, when the people are fucking doing reaction videos these days, get real. Just checking the chat real quick. Yeah, Chris's video had to become an F1 YouTuber as gold. It really is. He summed it up better than I ever could. Yeah, Fizzy's league races are fantastic as well. They are genuinely brilliant, and trust me, like, you guys don't. I know I worked on a few AOR videos in the past, and I know Fizzy very well. His work ethic is unbelievable. I have tremendous respect for Knins as a guy, and the guys he works with, and he has worked so hard on the AOR to get it to where it is today. It's like the pinnacle of like league racing on YouTube in terms of the F1 space and other games like Assetto Corsa and whatnot. But Fizzy's unbelievable. He's an unbelievably hard worker, and he deserves a lot of it. He deserves all the success that he gets out there, because the guy's fucking awesome. Great guy as well. Very likable dude. King's right. Subscribers aren't even the be-all and end-all anymore. Like Patreon and fan funding is the way to go, because YouTube, in terms of subscribers, don't make you money. It's video views that make you money. And unfortunately, so many spaces now have gotten to a point where advertisers are not paying big money for videos anymore. So it's getting to a point now where getting Patreon back in and having a small set of fans that really love what you do and funding you is the way to go now, as opposed to having channels with ridiculous subscriber counts. Like, even us, like, we have a ridiculous amount of Patreon backing. Like, we're making nearly $100 a month off Patreon money from you guys, the fans. You guys are fantastic. And I don't want to throw shade at a former group I'm in, but if you look at guys like Downforce Radio, who has like one backer, like, they don't have a community of listeners like we do. And the proof of that is in fan funding. Like, people are actively paying money to support the show and support what we do, and that's amazing. And that's what it's all about now for me. At least that's what I think as well. But yeah, Patreon is basically, it's a site where fans can pay content creators money to directly support their work, whether it's a monthly effort or it's for every video or piece of content that they make, basically. If you can think of any top tier YouTuber that's got like 1 million+ subs, they've probably got a Patreon account as well, because that's guaranteed money. Something that a lot of YouTubers can't really afford to do, because the YouTube ad money can go up and down, and that's not good for someone that wants a constant income. So, you know, Patreon is great because YouTube is such an unpredictable, massive monster of unpredictability, to say the least. And Patreon provides some stability for content creators, knowing they'll have a constant source of income no matter how much they make. And, you know, that's great. If you had Patreon, I would donate to you to get a trim. Thanks for that, man. Luke Higgins says, what's the best piece of advice to grow your YouTube channel without uploading every day? Make your content really, really great. That's the only way I get around. I mean, if you look at Matt, for example, who's just crossed 9,000 subs on MSTF1, he gets away with it because his content is fantastic. And like, fans will get excited to see a new piece of content. Like, if you're not going to upload every day, then you better make what you do make really friggin' special. Because if you don't, then you're going to struggle. Because, like I said, YouTube's algorithms now favor minutes watched, and and that system alone favors people that like vlog every day or are Let's Players and they upload every day, like Rhino GT4, for example. He's now got over 10,000 subs, and he's a great guy. He's a Patreon backer for us, funnily enough. But he uploads 2 or 3 times a day, and YouTube loves that because people that are watching hardcore will watch every single video he makes, and that ramps up his minutes logged count. That's the way to go now. If you're not going to upload every day, you better make what you are making really fucking special. In that case, and yeah, absolutely, it's absolutely right that like Len said, Twitch has fallen into that trap as well. And Twitch has become so toxic in the last 3 or 4 months. Like, the rise of people like Zoe Berger have completely ruined Twitch from a female standpoint now, because like, gaming is such a niche market where the majority of its predominant gaming YouTubers are men. So the women stand out from one point as it is, and there's so many gaming streamers now that are girls that aren't really playing games. They're trying to basically bend the rules of Twitch so they can be as sexual as possible. They'll do jumping jacks on the air, or they'll pick up, they drop to pen and they'll bend over to pick it up so you can see their arse, basically. Like, or they'll do a fidget spinner, or they'll do little things like that, basically, to get attention. And it's broken. It's a broken system because they're not gaming. Like, I know for a fact, and people have told me this, that people that used to be on My Free Cams and Chatterbait are going over to Twitch and YouTube and streaming on there, pretending to be gamers, because those sites are so much bigger than those specialist niche camming sites. So they're basically taking advantage of YouTube's younger audience, and they're using Twitch and YouTube to enhance themselves because the sites that they would normally do, and the content that they are willing to give you, like getting their tits out or masturbating on camera, they can't do that on YouTube or Twitch. But the site is struggling that way. So, you know, it's just a true story. If you want subs, just get the top comment on the biggest F1 YouTuber, or just say blah. Yeah, it's funny enough. But like I said, guys like Zoe Berger kind of ruined the Twitch game for a lot of people. And ironically, they've got Patreon pages as well, where you can see everything. Like, I saw it yesterday, like Valdudes. But then, if you guys remember Valdudes from his days on F1 when he was a Twitch streamer, when he was gaming, he's now more into art and whatnot now. But Valdude showed me a picture last night of Mia Khalifa on Twitch cooking, and it had like 12,000 viewers watching it. And I'm like, you people do realize she's not going to do anything on Twitch, right? Like, why are you watching? Like, if you really wanted to see her content, that's already all over the internet. So, like, why are 12,000 people watching this on Twitch? Like, you think she's going to flash you or something? It's bollocks. But, you know, welcome to the internet. Like, welcome to Twitch and whatnot. That's just how it is. So, you know. Oh, you don't know who Mia Khalifa is? She was at one point was like the biggest porn star in the world. She got her 15 minutes of fame by basically being in a porn scene wearing a headscarf, despite the fact she isn't Muslim. She's Lebanese, and she was wearing a headscarf in an adult scene, and she blew up in popularity that way. I think she's a sports writer now. because, you know, you get those opportunities when you've got a name and not much else. All I'm just saying is, don't Google the name if you're at work. Just throwing that out there. I still find it funny that I know people that actually follow her on Twitter. That's kind of funny. I went away for a minute and we talked about porn. What happened? I happened. It's as simple as that. But you know, that's how it just relates to Twitch. It was your comment about Twitch, Len, that brought it up. Like, Glennon, did you get the term thick, like THICC, from Jimmy Broadbent's streams? I've been watching him lately, and he uses that word a lot. He's been Let's Playing Gran Turismo 2 on YouTube, and I think he's just started on GT3 as well. But I just find it funny that, like, 12,000 people were watching, like, expecting something to happen. So shout out to Valdudes on that one. If you haven't followed him already, he's one of the real... Like, I've talked to him before. He's one of the smartest dudes you'll ever see on the internet. And Valdudes is a great guy. Like, it's amazing that through all the people that I've met via YouTube over the last years of doing F1 and whatnot, Val's one of the few dudes that stuck around. Because I don't really talk to that many F1 YouTubers anymore. I really don't. Like I'm friends with Arav. I'm friends with Niran FNG, Ryan L83, Fizzy to a degree. But that's really about it. Like... Oh, I'm glad like everybody in the internet says thick. Lol. But yeah, like I'm glad somebody else recognized I was talking about Jimmy's channel. Like, Jimmy Broadbent is fantastic. I watch him every time he streams. He's great. He's the reason why I wanted to try and think about Let's Playing Gran Turismo 2 on my channel, but or on this channel, but I'm still kind of thinking about it. Are you in the F1 community, says Poochie Head? Well, what's the F1 community? I don't know what the definition is these days, because the amount of active F1 YouTubers is not very many these days. Like, Matty G's now for W1, working for WTF1. Into the Barrier does videos occasionally. Now he's finished university. Arav and Ben are the two big hitters. I don't know about anybody else. I think Tom97's still uploading videos and whatnot. So, you know, we'll have to wait and see on that one. But see in the chat, really. I'm 30 and I feel way too old seeing these comments. Yeah, I'll think about it. But the thing is, like, a Let's Play is like a really, really friggin' big commitment. And I'm not sure that I'd have the time to really do it justice. Because, like, a part of me still feels like I've got unfinished business as a gaming Let's Player. But I only ever finished one Let's Play, really, and that was like Grid, and that was like 4 years ago now. I guess you could count MotoGP's 15 to a degree, because I did get to MotoGP in that one, but I never finished my first season there. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, like, GT2 is still one of the smaller like GT games, but still, it would still be like a good 15-20 hours of play at least. And I'm not sure if I could do that. I could stream it, who knows, but I'll have to wait and see. Grid Let's Play was the GOAT. I did finish Grid. Like, the whole, well, kind of. I did a bunch of the drift events off camera because I couldn't do it at the higher difficulties I was normally playing the races at. But I did finish my Let's Play of Grid. I was very proud of that one. It's on my old channel, Harrison 101 if you want to see it. I did get through the entire game with some genuinely great moments in there. You could always try to 100% GT4 like Rhino. Look, Rhino is a masochist, okay? He is a madman of monumental proportions. Like, I think his Let's Play came out to something like over 600 hours of play or something ridiculous like that. Because, like, that video series was like 185 parts. It was insane. And he did all 3 24-hour races that are in the game as well. The 1,000 miles is like easily like another 5 or 6 hours. Like, yeah, I am Harrison 101. Yeah, that is me. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see how that goes. I'm checking the chat real quick. Oh, God, 100% Project Cars 2 with full-length races in September. I don't think I'm going to buy that game yet. So I was disappointed with the first one. I'm not sure if I'm willing to do it again. Apparently, it's a bit more pad-friendly this time around. But I'm not going to be the guy that ever buys a wheel to play racing games with, so... I never did the banter streams. Those were Matty. But I was in a couple of them, Poochie Head. I was in a couple of them, mostly just to sit there as everybody cracked jokes about trying to fuck Matty's underage sister. Because banter. Like, it went way too far, some of those banter streams. Like, I never liked those sort of jokes. And, like, if I'm being real with it, like, a lot of the later ones with them, it was like basically watching a circle jerk around Amy the engineer, and it wasn't pretty. Oh my God, we got a girl in here! Woo! Let's make sex jokes with the girl in the stream. It's like, oh God, it was. Ugh. I agree. Grid Autosport was a really solid game. And yeah, I completely agree, Glennon. That yeah, Championship Edition was a very good game as well. One second. Yeah, I'm kind of mad on GT Sport. Like, it looks really great, but I'm not sure if I want to play a GT game that, like, we've had no details on GT Sport's single-player campaign yet, if it's even going to have one. I'm not going to be interested in a game that's purely based on esports. Like, don't get me wrong, I have maximum respect for esports and I want it to take off massively, but that's not appealing to me as a casual racer. So... So Glenn's like, yeah, Curl, show me your tits. That's what it was actually like, Brian, on those like Amy-related banter streams. Like, let's call it what it is. It was basically a circle jerk. Like, oh, let's hit on the girl that's here, even though she had a boyfriend and, you know, just happened to be really attractive. Like, it was awful. But, you know, banter by the time we got to 2011, 2012, banter was just basically like say anything you want without repercussion. Which is why I've got into many a fight with some of the people that were in that sort of posse at the time. Like the people know who I'm talking about, you know, so whatever. Yeah, Keem, I completely agree. Like F1 absolutely should have a game like F1 Challenge where they have drivers change and they move on through seasons. That would be amazing. But as Jason said, it's never going to happen because the licensing would be a nightmare. You'd have to do separate licensing deals with every sponsor out there, and it just wouldn't work. It's like, for example, could you ever see Lewis Hamilton joining Ferrari, for instance, when Mercedes has a deep sponsorship with Monster Energy? That can't really work. Or like, could Lewis Hamilton ever drive for Red Bull knowing that he's sponsored by Monster? Just can't work. And that's a huge conflict of interest. So that would never happen, unfortunately. But I'd love to see it happen one day, but it would be a nightmare. Yeah. Who's Nico? Oh, you meant Brittany. Lol. F1 Champions. Oh, I see what you mean, Jake. I see what you mean. Yeah. Why do the people who said all that stuff seem like the sort of people who still use "you're gay" as an insult? Because a lot of F1 YouTubers were young people back then, and they were quite rightly quite immature. Like, I'm not expecting 14 or 15-year-olds to be the beacon of maturity on the internet. Grown adults still struggle at that bit, let alone teenagers. So, it is what it is, man. I would love Braun in F1 2017, Glennon. I would love that. I used to have F1 Championship Edition, Glenn, and trust me, Rosberg's hair was beautiful. He did indeed have great hair. This is in the chat here. Braun is rumoured, no? Sainz's hair is underrated. Yeah, that's when Nico had a mullet. But is it as great as Helio, says Zoe? Tough call. Tough call. The only Braun he will have is Braun Strowman. Well, if we've got the Red Bull RB6, they might as well throw the Braun in there too. Jeez. Who do I think will drive for Toro Rosso next year? I think Sainz will do at least one more year, and I'm not sure if they're going to. I think they'll move Kvyat on. I really do. I mean, not that I think Kvyat isn't worthy of being there. I just think Red Bull's conveyor belt's getting a bit too clogged up, and I think they'll give Pierre Gasly his chance, so to speak. I think Gasly will be in F1 next year. It's just a matter of waiting for the right time for it to happen. I think Kvyat has been collateral damage for the last year and a half for Red Bull Racing. So why not just end his career there? Really, it's just a shame. But that's how it is. It's a cold world, and Red Bull are bastards. They ruin people's careers. Like, if you're not a golden prospect of Vettel or a Ricciardo or a Verstappen, you will get thrown under the bus. There's an inevitability with that. The only one that really you know, got a full career and wasn't treated like dog shit was Mark Webber. And even Webber was a victim to a degree of Vettel's success because it ended Webber's chances of winning a title. Just not because Vettel was better, but because they made Red Bull a 1-2 driver team, basically. So, you know. Manisha Keltenborn, thoughts on... I feel bad. I mean, listen, like, I am a firm believer in getting more women into Formula One via merit. And Manisha Keltenborn, it's a shame because she had the one contract goof in 2016 with the Guido van der Garde shit, and Guido is still bitter as fuck about that, clearly, because all he does on Twitter now is basically mock Sauber. It's like, okay, Guido, we get it, you're not in F1, you were never that good anyway, bye. But you know, I feel bad for her because Manisha had to work really, really hard with not very much when she was at Sauber. She got a lot out of often very little. She formed that great 2012 team with Perez and Kobayashi. She turned Hülkenberg into one of Hülkenberg's best seasons in 2013, despite the fact they couldn't afford to pay him at the time. And you know, Nasser's rookie season was a pretty darn good rookie season, and it's a shame that he's no longer in F1 either. I think Marcus Ericsson has genuinely improved, and I think she's done well with drivers, and I think that she was a pretty solid team principal. It's just a shame that you know, she seemingly took the flak for a team that was leaning towards Marcus Ericsson. And like, do you really want to build your team around Marcus Ericsson? I think it's because Marcus is really well sponsored. Like, Marcus has got like a Swedish food company giving him like 10 million euros a year to that team. He's like Magnussen. He's got that one big sponsor that brings them onto the table and gives them funding, basically. Where it looks like Manisha was leaning more towards Pascal Wehrlein as the driver of the future, and probably rightly so, because Pascal's been great his F1 career so far. Like they said, like they questioned, like the interview on Autosport was interesting. They asked Marcus, like, you know, Marcus gave the company line of, oh, the team was working hard to believe that to give both drivers a chance of winning, and Pascal Wehrlein was like, no comment. So, like, Pascal clearly thinks there's something going on there, and like Marcus was like, he seemed surprised that Pascal said no comment, which kind of says it all, really. Like, something was going on, and maybe the fact that Honda's coming in, maybe the fact that they're leaning more towards pay drivers was probably enough for Manisha, which is a shame. But you know, it's a shame. But I do wish Manisha the best. I think she's a very solid team principal that did a lot, often with next to nothing, and she is the perfect walking advert to get women into motorsport, and she's going to go, and that's a shame because that's one less female role model for young girls to look up to, and that's a real shame. There isn't very many left. You've got Ruth Buscombe and a few others like that, but there's not many great prolific female figures in F1 now, and Manisha was one of them. I mean, again, she's got a degree in law, incredibly intelligent woman. You know, she had to claw her way up the system. She got to the point where she was in charge of an F1 team, and that's incredible. We don't give her enough credit for that in a man's world. Like, as a person of color and as a woman, to make it that far in F1 is a brilliant achievement. Because if you watch F1, you don't get that many black people in there, do you? Like, you don't get very many people of color involved in Formula One either. It's generally a white person sport. So if you have a person of color like Manisha and a woman, you know, make it that high up the food chain is very admirable indeed. So, you know, it's a shame, but you know, I think she did a great job of what she was given, and you know, I wish her the best. I really do. Let's have a look here. Honda is no good for F1, but Sauber needs the money and they're broke as fuck. Yeah, very true. It's black. Like I said, But that's the thing, Poochie. What the point I'm making here is that in sports, the black people that stand out are the ones that are the athletes themselves. Like, look at the NBA. It's 60% black, pretty much. Like in the NFL, there's often stereotypes that come with black players that you don't normally get with white ones when it comes to things like quarterback evaluation. And in Formula One, the guys that are black or people of color that stand out are generally ones that are generally ones that are drivers and not much else, because F1 still pretends to think it's some sort of meritocracy. But the question we need to ask ourselves is not, why is like Hamilton and Verlaine, another black driver like Pascal Verlaine, who's got a Mauritian mother. The question is, why aren't more people of color being involved in Formula One? That's another question you may need to ask, alongside why is female participation so low, but also why is participation from people of color so bad? I mean, I have theories on that myself, but I'll save them for another day. But it's the same deal, pretty much. No, I didn't. I was like right 93 or something. Send the line right for that one. Thanks. Yeah, sure. It's getting a bit dark in here. Cheers. Yeah, I was just doing a Google Hangout right now. And again, even now, it's not like Sauber are doing terribly. Like, they're 9th right now, and they're ahead of McLaren. And Pascal Verlaine got the team. What was it? 2 points, or was it 4 points in Spain? I can't remember if he finished 8th or not. I think it was 9th. But yeah, like Pascal's a great driver. Yeah, we've got to wait and see how that goes. Um, 2014 Hamilton. That back there is a 2015 Hamilton helmet. The 2014 one's a lot more expensive because they didn't sell as many of them, but that's a 2015 Hamilton helmet back there, in case you're asking. I did read about Dan Evans' positive test for cocaine. Generally speaking, like, I know people have been quite harsh on Dan Evans for this one. Like, I have a level of empathy when it comes to that, because, listen, like, we act like taking coke is no big deal. Like, that's a big deal, and I'd love to know the reasons why Dan Evans was taking coke. Was it because of peer pressure? Was it because of the pressure of being in a part of being Britain's #3 best tennis player? I'd like to know the reasons as to why he was doing it, and I, generally speaking, have a level of empathy for that, because I don't want to see people punished for taking drugs in that sense. I just want to see them get help and make sure they're okay. Like, because, the man was doing coke. I mean, that's not good under any measure. And sure, he should be punished for it, and he failed the drug test, quite rightly so. But I just want to make sure and hope he's okay. I hope if it's a problem, he gets help more than anything else. So I'll wait and see how that goes. But it's a shame. It is a shame. I missed a few questions in here. Glenn asked, if it wasn't for Martini, do you think Pascal would be at Williams right now? Maybe, probably. Martini, meaning you've got to have a sponsor. As a sponsor means they have to have a driver who's 25 or up, and that pretty much ruled out every young driver in the field. Didn't help. They pretty much were forced to bring back Felipe Massa for another year. I mean, Pascal would have gotten in if it wasn't for that, which is a shame, because I think, again, he's a good driver. So yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame about Dan Evans. Just to say it again, it's a shame about Dan Evans, and I hope that if he's doing that, he's having help. But yeah, Stroll. I mean, Stroll is fine as a youngster, and Pascal Verlaine has got potential. So wouldn't have been a bad young lineup of the future to carry themselves with if they kept that going. So it wouldn't have hurt. Just look at my phone for a minute, you guys. Do I agree with Palmer being sacked after the Hungarian Grand Prix? I don't normally agree with people losing their jobs mid-season because having to bring in somebody new, short notice, there's going to be a level of short-term pain that comes in. I mean, Esteban Ocon wasn't all that great when he first joined Manor, but he got a lot better towards the end of the season. He was better in time. But who would they bring in? Like Sergei Sorokin will probably be the most likely name on the form book. And there's no guarantee that he would be any better than Jolyon Palmer is. He's another young GP2 guy that's shown, great speed, but he's never driven an F1 before. There's no guarantee that he'll be the same way. I mean, Jolyon's fall has been that much more surprising given he was a 4-year GP2 veteran who was a GP2 champion. Like, it makes it all the more puzzling that he wasn't able to translate that into Formula One. He was very experienced. He had a great junior career, but as a senior, it's just not worked for him. And there's no guarantee that Sorokin would be a guaranteed nailed-on better replacement. Or Robert Kubica, who still hasn't driven a Formula One race now in what, 5-6 years? Are we just going to assume that the moment you walk him back into the car, he's going to be fine? There's no guarantee he can do a full race distance yet. Like, he says he can do a whole race distance without limitations. I'm not entirely sure that's true. So we'll have to wait and see. But overall, I don't know. I'll have to wait and see. Like, I'm not entirely convinced that that's going to be an improvement. So if the new Chinese team is rumored to be for 2018, do you think they will use their own chassis or get the Manor one, which wasn't raced this year? I am not entirely convinced that there will be a Chinese team in F1 anytime soon. Because why would anybody want to invest in Formula One right now? It seems like a really shitty investment. Like, okay, you're going to spend like at least £100 million creating like a new F1 team to enter the championship. You get no prize money in your first season. You're going to have to spend a shit ton of money on development, a shit ton of money to pay everybody, pay the drivers, pay their wages, pay all the staff that comes in there. You're probably going to hire domestic dudes like Hu Ping-tung, for example. That's going to take money. And then when you're uncompetitive, you're not going to get the prize money to be able to keep up with the other smaller teams, like even Sauber or Renault or Toro Rosso that have to climb their way up, or Haas. Like, Gene Haas was able to invest in Formula One because he was willing to lose £100 million a year to make it work. Because Gene Haas is a freaking billionaire. Like, I don't like as a guy with a level of business sense. In Formula One, if you're not in the top 4, it is pointless taking part because you're not participating, you're surviving. That's what it feels like anyway. So I doubt we'll actually get this supposed Shanghai team. I really question that one. A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Would you replace Kidden with Ed Jones? No. To keep it brief, I like Ed Jones. I just think that's a stupidly high leap. F1 needs spec engines. They don't. Like, here's the thing. I wouldn't mind a level of spec parts on an F1 car to try and balance the field. The problem is that the factory teams would never let that happen because they want their road cars to sell. That's why Ferrari is in Formula One. That is why Mercedes are in Formula One. They're in those sports because right now they want to sell their road cars. And a lot of that is the hybrid technology that more and more manufacturers are putting into Formula One, are putting into road cars right now, like KERS or like DRS, like McLaren's doing with the P1 or the Ferrari LaFerrari, or, you know, Merck's having a fully SLS-powered hybrid car. So, you know, there's a level of that involved, but the manufacturers would never allow one generic engine because what's the point of taking part otherwise? Like, part of what makes it interesting is that the factories make their own engines. Like, just because one team struggles doesn't mean the whole field should run on the same engine parts. You want to fix the problem, put a cap on how much factories can charge the satellite teams, and then, on top of that, bring the prize money up to get it into play so they can help them out. Maybe give the smaller teams more testing sessions to try and close the gap and try and make more gains that way. And maybe bring back ground effect aero to improve the overtaking. But I don't think that subsidizing engine components is particularly fair or anything that I could see realistically happening. Simon Pagenaud could work in Formula One, but why would a top tier IndyCar driver go to Formula One? Like the guys like the Scott Dixons, the Will Powers, the Ryan Hunter-Reys, the Graham Rahals of the world, they make their money and they make their name on IndyCar being an American-based series, and they are bigger names in the States. They would not be taken seriously if they went to Europe unless you're a hardcore motorsport fan that knows both series. Like, if Scott Dixon was in Formula One right now, nobody would bat an eye on a general level. You'd have to know, oh, this guy won an IndyCar 4 times. I guarantee you the response would be like, oh, didn't Sebastian Bourdais win Champ Car 4 times? But he sucked. And I'm like, no, but that's what people are going to do because F1 is in a fucking bubble that doesn't take people seriously, that wasn't in that F1 bubble at some point. Like, people were frigging shocked that Alexander Rossi won the Indy 500 last year, as if he wasn't a really good driver who did a good job in the time he was at Manor in F1. He beat the crap out of Will Stevens, who, by the way, is now a Le Mans class winner. It's like Will Stevens was actually a good driver, but the fact that Manor F1 was never going to be a good showpiece for his abilities. That's what it is. And that's the problem with F1 versus IndyCar. Both series are basically turning it into a dick-swinging contest, where IndyCar guys think their guys are the best and think F1 guys are prima donnas because they drive on ovals and shit. And F1 has got such an elitist mentality that when Fernando Alonso jumped over, they were all spending their time asking themselves, oh, like, IndyCar must suck because Alonso came over and beat all these dudes. No, it can be both. They can both be really good series. Like, what? Like, it can be like a good series is not a mutually exclusive thing. Formula One is not good because IndyCar is bad, and vice versa. They're both great series of great talent. It's just, I think in IndyCar, their bubble is actually more economic because the series makes its money in the United States. They don't make their money in Europe like Formula One does, and that's a big problem. I had a fly on top of my seat that was getting on my nerves. It's a good point, Vic. Yeah, smaller teams probably couldn't afford to run more tests, even if they could. I would like to see the FOM flip the bill on that, but again, they would never do that because they felt they give out enough money to people. I mean, we all know last year Ferrari got like £65 million in bonus money just for fucking showing up. Historical payment. Whatever the hell that means. Superior open wheel design. I love the 2018 IndyCar. For what it's worth, I love the 2018 IndyCar. I think it looks fantastic. I can't wait to see it in action. I think it's going to be great, especially on the short ovals. I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes around the track. I'm looking forward to seeing the cars and the liveries. I think it's going to be fantastic. I really can't wait. Yeah, I mean, again, even talking about Hulkenberg, yeah. Yeah, it's gone to the point because, yeah, it's a very good point that you made there, Cameron. Like, I'm a big Hulkenberg fan, but let's be real here. Hulkenberg was the slowest of the three drivers in the Porsche 919 that won Le Mans 2 years ago. Like, he was carried by Nick Tandy and who was the other? I think it was Earl Bamber who was the third man in that car. Like, they carried Hulkenberg to that victory. Like, Hulkenberg took a lot of the credit for it because it was Nico Hulkenberg, which is a shame because, like, I think the real star of the show was Nick Tandy. And I'm glad that, of all people, Sky Sports acknowledged Nick Tandy first because he's British. You're the beast, unfortunately. But again, people will see the WEC as a step down compared to Formula One, even though the WEC guys are fantastic drivers in their own right. I mean, if you watch some of those LMP1 battles you got with Porsche, Audi, and Toyota, they were fantastic. Like, and that was Mark Webber, Neil Yarny, Marcel Fassler, Andre Lotterer, Nicolas Lapierre, Earl Bamber, Bernard Hartley, Timo Bernard. There's more. Like Anthony Davidson, he was an F1 bust when you think about it. Davidson drove for Super Aguri. He was never going to stand out where that's concerned. Sebastian Buemi, who was a Red Bull reject, who's now a world champion in 2 different disciplines, Formula E and WEC. Like, Buemi is a genuinely great driver that, again, we all pissed on because his F1 career didn't amount to much. The nature of F1 being so elitist is a shame because it ruins the reputations of drivers for no reason, really. Apply, my friend. Like, just because Hulkenberg drove the final stint doesn't mean he's the winner. It's a team of 3 for good reason. But yeah, like I said, yeah, you're right. Like, Anthony Davidson never got a fair shake because he drove for Super Aguri, who were running a 2002 Arrow chassis. Get their own one. Kind of says it all, really. And again, world endurance champion. Like, he's a fantastic driver on any level. But, Davidson gets looked on poorly because of his poor F1 career, which, again, isn't entirely Davidson's fault. And yeah, a lot of again, it just goes to you that F1 is not a meritocracy if sponsors and shit cars can ultimately determine your career before it's even gotten started. Jaime Alguersuari retired from racing I think a year and a half ago, Glennon. Alguersuari was like the youngest F1 driver ever at one point. I think he debuted at like 18, 19 years old. 3 or 4 seasons, he was out of the sport at 23. He did like season 1 Formula E, and then he retired because racing was making him depressed. So yeah, mental health was a big reason why Jaime Alguersuari retired, and I think he's now getting into a music career in Spain instead. And, he's seemingly gay as well, so good for him, basically. But I hope he's okay more than anything else, because like I can totally imagine racing being the depressing thing. If you haven't read Damon Hill's book about it, I really recommend you do, because Damon Hill talks candidly about the depression that he suffered when he was an F1 driver, and talking about having to replicate his hero, and that was his dad Graham. I highly recommend you read it. It's a great book. Yeah. Checking the Twitters real quick. I don't know how long we'll go for. Maybe till 9:30. Have to wait and see. This comes here. Yeah, I'm not going to take any mocking comments regarding Alguersuari's sexual preference. Let me just make that clear from now. Yeah, Poochie Head's done. Glenn said, "Courts on Catherine Legg winning back at Detroit." I didn't watch it, but I'm delighted for Catherine Legg. Like, we're big fans of her on the podcast. I think she's a great driver. Like, the stint she put in for the 24 hours at Daytona last year, where she was driving the Delta Wing, and it was like the Delta Wing had finally come good, and then she was wrecked by another car during a safety car period, and ruined her race. Her first stint, where she started from the back and took to the lead and was leading by doing a double stint. She was unbelievable in that stint. She's up there with like the best female driver on the planet right now. Probably between her and Christina Nielsen, between those two. Either. But I don't see who else would compare. Yeah, I know it wasn't directly her, but the car. It was a team effort, man. Jeez. Yeah, I think Christina Nielsen's probably the only person in that discussion. And the fact that like a fan was like throwing shade at yeah, she was driving the race as well, Glennon. Yeah, she was given the Spirit Award, which I know it was a fan award, but that her performance inspired the Dray series. That's where it all started. If you go back on this channel, episode one was me talking about Catherine Legg. Yeah, Ricciardo going from the bottom of the top. Ricciardo was back the whole way. So I can't say like it's like he climbed his way up. Like, Ricciardo was destined for greatness, and he got lucky that this Mark Webber retired. Like, he had a nice bit of timing thrown in there as well. Let's have a look here. 40 minutes. Yeah, I thought it was a great fight. GTR. I thought it was great. I watched the last of it. It was fantastic. Jordan Taylor really did put in a hell of an effort to try and keep it alive for him, but was very unlucky to have finished third in class in the end, because one, it was so close, and two, getting that penultimate lap tire failure was just awful, really. Like, absolutely right, Glenn. Like Ricciardo was absolutely right place, right time sort of dude. But there's always an element of that in Formula One. Yep. Evan. They were the last team to get a DNQ for being outside of the 107%. Yeah, I've never gotten around that one, Cameron. Like, Vettel getting dumped for being in an Adrian Newey car is such a stupid argument, because why are we acting like every car Adrian Newey designed was a winner? He's been in F1 since, like, the friggin' 80s. They weren't all championship winners. Like, okay, he did amazingly to have 10, but, like, that's like 10 out of, like, 30. An incredible hit rate no matter which way you slice it. But let's not act like Newey was like a genius every single year he was in F1. And let's not forget that F1's grids were never as stacked as they were in the early 2010s. Like, part of the advertising for F1 2012 was the fact that the grid had 6 world champions in it. Schumacher, Raikkonen, Button, Hamilton, Alonso, and then Seb. Seb, like, won a narrow title fight in arguably the best, most competitive season we've seen in F1 in many, many years. Like, 2012 was an amazing season, mostly because there was 9 or 10 dudes who could have won Grand Prix that year, and we got 7 different winners that season. And we could have easily had a couple more, like Grosjean was very close to winning in Valencia, for example. You know, Pastor Maldonado won a Grand Prix. It was a season where on their day, 7 or 8 teams could have won a Grand Prix. And Vettel came out on top. 2011 and 13, sure, he won in dominant cars, but, you know, that's the story of F1. He also won 2 very close title fights with world-class opposition. And he narrowly came out on top in competitive fields. Like, people want to say that F1 is uncompetitive these days. We also got to realize we've been spoiled the last few years when it comes to close title fights. 2016, 15 was close, 14 was close, 12 was close, 10 was close, 9 was close, as was 8, 7, 6. 5 was fairly close, 2003, 2001. Like, there's a good few seasons that went to the wire. So, you know, we've been lucky. We've been spoilt for a long time. And, you know, just because Vettel was the best of that era in a team that had 2 dominant cars doesn't mean he should be brought down for those achievements. So, because honestly, if you're putting down Vettel for those reasons, why aren't people more critical of Michael Schumacher's Ferraris? Vettel wasn't as popular? What's the reason? It's not fair, but that's just how it is, really. 15 was fairly close. Maybe not 15 then, but you get the gist. I mean, 2009 penultimate race. Like, again, like, how close do you want your title fights to be? It's like F1 is a sport of dominance. Like, I remember King told me this stat the other day. I think it's nearly 65% of the time that the team that goes on to win the Constructors did so winning more than half the races in that calendar year. So it's a sport of dominance from its inception, the way we know it to be anyway, where 99% of the time the best car wins. And if we're going by that logic, we shouldn't condemn the drivers who are in the cars, especially because there's a level of double standards that come with this, because many other drivers in there didn't get that same luxury. And not to mention, like you say, Hamilton and Alonso's fan bases are hardcore. Like, Alonso and Hamilton are the 2 hardcore fan bases in F1. The Vettel fan base is only really in play because people had to defend him so much. It didn't really happen until after the Red Bull stint came to an end and we got an even more dominant Mercedes team. Like, 2012 and 2013 was like peak Vettel hatred. Like, Multi-21 became a thing because, you know, boo team orders, but also boo the guy who breaks the rules. How does that work? And not to mention, the fact he won 9 races in a row, but he was getting booed for 10 straight rounds afterwards. And the booing didn't stop until Singapore that year when Martin Brundle was like, listen, enough, basically. This is getting silly now. The man's won like 6 Grand Prix on the spin. Why are we still booing him for doing a brilliant job? So... Yeah, good point about 2012. Sergio Perez almost won 2 or 3 races that season as well. 2 races, he very nearly won. But he could have won in Malaysia if he hadn't bottled it. And he could have also probably won in Italy if the race was a few laps longer. Like, F1 2012 had 7 different winners, and 2 guys could have easily won another one in there as well. But the Hamgapers talk up Lewis's wins like that. Mercedes isn't the literal best F1 car of all time. See, that's the double standards, Cameron. Like, we talk about Vettel winning the best car. What the hell do you call Lewis Hamilton? The last 3 years. He's had 3 straight 10-win seasons in Formula 1. Like, only 3 dudes have ever won 10 Grand Prix in a season, and Lewis is one of them, and he's done it on 3 occasions. He's the only guy in history with 3 10-win seasons to his name. Averaging 10.3 wins a year in the hybrid era because he won 11 in 2015. Bonkers. Like, Lewis is a statistical monster, and a lot of it's down to the car he's driving because Merckx did not have a threat until this season. It took 4 years for even one car in the field to catch up. Like, you can't hype Lewis and the records he's breaking now because he's the statistical phenom of this era, while at the same time condemning Vettel because he won it in a dominant car. Sport that spent many, many years making Nico Rosberg sound terrible. This is a sport that actively shits on Nico Rosberg for years for not being Lewis Hamilton until he beats him in 2016. It's like, oh, well, Nico's a world champion now. Great. He's a really great driver. Can't wait for next year's feud. Oh, wait, he retired because for him, 1 was enough. And people were calling him a coward because he didn't want to defend his title. What? Fuck that shit. Like, what is going to happen when Lewis Hamilton retires? That's going to be a fun question. Where's his fans going to go? Boy. I think that fan base is absolutely toxic. My cat's outside the room now. But like I said, that fan base is toxic. But overall, I think for the first 3 years of the hybrid era, I think Merckx had won like 53 out of 61 Grand Prix. Like, the greatest run of dominance we've ever seen in Formula 1, where they were blowing teams out of the water on many occasions. And Lewis Hamilton was spearheading that, and people want to sit here and tell me that Seb's overrated because he won in a Red Bull. Had half of the 4 seasons where Red Bull was truly the best car in the field. Bullshit. Friggin' hate those ham capers that say that. It's such bullshit. Like, if you want a better example, Pied Piper made a very good point in the chat just now. Like, you think it's bad for Hamilton? Look at what's going to happen when Valentino Rossi hangs it up in MotoGP. That's going to be a more telling example. Like, in F1, it's more socially acceptable to back more than one driver, have different teams' merchandise, to have more than one guy to root for. I think F1 fans are largely okay with that. It's not like football, where they're very territorial. You've got to back one club and you can't deviate. And F1's a bit more of an open book in that sense. But MotoGP, you see the territories when you go to a Grand Prix weekend. There's a sea of yellow at every weekend. There's a Marquez grandstand. There's a Vinales grandstand. There's a Lorenzo grandstand with the black and the red flags and the red X flags going on. There's a Danny Pedrosa grandstand. The fan bases are very territorial, even more so after the kick in 2015. And, you know, now the Rossi and the Marquez fans hate each other. So Lewis Hamilton might be one impact, but Valentino Rossi is going to be another one. When he retires, like, who's going to watch MotoGP? Who are they going to back, and are they going to still watch? Because no one is going to be like Valentino Rossi. Like, there's 3 or 4 sports where that worries me. What's going to happen to F1 post-Hamilton? What's going to happen to MotoGP post-Valentino? What's going to happen to athletics post-Usain Bolt, who's retiring later this year? And what's going to happen to snooker when Ronnie O'Sullivan retires? It's the same deal. Because as much as Mark Selby's the best player in the world and a really likable dude, he's not Ronnie O'Sullivan. He's not the sexy pick. He's not the guy that the casual fans are going to tune in to watch. It's the same deal. Like MotoGP, like, I worry what's going to happen when Rossi retires. Become Vinales fans, especially if Vinales wins the title this year, which he's currently favourite to do. I think he's 10-11 to win the title right now. But you're right, Len. You're absolutely right. Like Valentino Rossi, like, the Marquez fan base got vilified for basically Marquez not accepting the fact that Rossi kicked his bike. Rossi kicked Marquez's side pod and get the shit. What sense does that make? Like, friggin' hell. Yeah, I was the same deal. I lost all respect for Valentino Rossi after the kick. He's a tremendous rider, one of the greatest motorsport in any form of the class, or in any form of motorsport. He's one of the greatest names ever. One of the most marketable names ever. He put MotoGP on the map, but he's a dickwad. Over a year, like nearly a year later, he called Marquez an idiot for that, and they still aren't all that friendly. Just says that the man is bitter, and he didn't like the fact that Marquez didn't play by the same rule, like the Marquez played by the same rules that Valentino Rossi did. So that made his career so prolific. Like, Marquez can't do what Valentino Rossi did when he knocked Sete Gibernau off at Jerez in 2006. Or, you know, Marquez is too aggressive for MotoGP. Rossi made his career on aggressive taunting. Like, Jesus. Yeah, completely agree, Piper. Like, personality, and like, Marquez had the personality and the flair to be the next guy, but he's now alienated an enormous pocket of fans through no fault of his own. So Marquez is not going to be that guy, even though he has the ability, the charisma, and the personality to absolutely be the face of MotoGP. Like, I think he still will be. I think it's just the problem is that, you know, Rossi fans who hate his guts for being a victim, basically, or accusing Marquez of rigging the championship for Lorenzo, which is just completely untrue. That's what it is. Yeah. Completely right. Valley found the first man he couldn't destroy mentally, and it backfired. Because that was the story of Rossi's career. He mentally bullied Max Biaggi. He mentally bullied Sete Gibernau. He picked on an early Lorenzo before he got really good. And when Lorenzo did get good, Rossi jumped to Ducati. You know, he came back and Lorenzo was a much better rider and he had a much harder time of it. And again, Lorenzo is a guy you can't intimidate anymore. Marquez was a guy that you can't intimidate because Marquez is too happy. He knows, like, he's not an idiot, Marquez. And Marquez is Marquez. He's going to ride how he rides. We're not going to rattle him because he's got a ridiculous amount of confidence. So, yeah, it backfired badly and it cost Rossi title number 10. It's amazing about Valentino. He's the most dominant MotoGP rider ever, but the 2 times titles have gone to the wire with Rossi involved, he bottled it both times. Bottled it in 2006 against Nicky Hayden, and he bottled it in 2015 against Jorge Lorenzo. It's funny, that. No, who said Romo? I know that RJ O'Connell is still a big fan of both riders. For what it's worth. It wasn't you, Luke. It was Poochie Head, to be fair. Yours was fine for the most part. But yeah, I think we'll go for about 15 to 20 more minutes. I go till 1:30, and I'll call it that. I owe Zoe Hamilton a game of golf with friends. Just check on my phone for 1 second. Yeah. I feel you could almost compare it to IndyCar in that regard. How so, Piper? Let me know in the comments. Okay. Look up. Yeah, the current MotoGP grid is the best it has ever been. The field is stacked with fantastic riders and personalities on the most level playing field there's ever been. Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. I think it's the best MotoGP field. Honestly, the MotoGP grid has gotten better and better the last 4 years in a row. It's like they keep finding ways of improving. Like they've got Alex Rins in there now. I think he's a great talent. Maverick's now on a top tier, but the talent's been spread out a little bit more. Johan Zarco's been a revelation so far this year. Jonas Volger's been a really good rookie. I'd like to see Suzuki do a bit better. I'd like to see Iannone back up the front a little bit, but the field is amazing and the presentation is amazing, and that Dawn has actively done really well in bringing more of the field into play. It's a much more balanced field, and MotoGP is killing it right now. I highly recommend people to be watching MotoGP if they're not watching. If you're sick of F1, go watch MotoGP. Again, it's one of their best tracks on the calendar. It's one of their blue ribbon rounds, and like MotoGP has never looked better. I am in awe of what the series has done the last year and a half. It's so impressive. So yeah, I completely compel you to watch MotoGP if you get a chance. If you haven't got BT Sport, find it via totally legal means. But yeah, it's absolutely it's in a golden period right now. Like, it's so great. I mean, I'm so glad that like guys like Zarco and Volga have been really good, and Dovizioso seems to have taken that next step up. to being like a true alien level rider. You know, maybe Zarco could be the long-term Valentino replacement. And go KTM's in there now as well. We've got more factory backing than ever before. We've got 12 factory bikes now in MotoGP, and you know, more competitive satellite teams, and the tires are making things more unpredictable. And it's been an amazing season so far, and it's only going to get better. F1 is just miserable by comparison. Just is. Being a Toyota WEC fan. Only at Le Mans and Cameron, true. Like, Tech Free winning a race, it's amazing. Like Johann Zarco may have blown that one in Qatar, but that, like, people forget they came close a couple of years ago. Like, Cal Crutchlow gave Marquez a really good fight at the Sachsenring in 2014, I think it was. So close to winning on multiple occasions. But, you know, it goes to show you that last year's championship contending Yamaha was a really good bike. The fact that Zarco and Volga are immediately top 8 runners on last year's Yamaha kind of says it all, really. Let's see. We'll call it a 15:15, guys, so maybe 5 more minutes. So, last chance to get your questions in. I'll see if I can make it. I'll get them in as quick as I can. Any other questions, you guys? Should Corvette go mid-engine next year? Nah, seem pretty fine how they are, if you ask me. Baku and Assen predictions. I reckon Lewis Hamilton will win in Formula One, and I think Valentino Rossi will win in MotoGP. I think Assen is probably Rossi's strongest circuit. He's always gone well around Assen. He's won there times, I think, in his career already. And he probably should have won last year before he binned it in the wet and whatnot. Like, Rossi's like really good at Assen. So for me, I'm going to go with Valentino on that one. Do you think there'll ever be a Grand Prix in Ireland? Probably not, Luke. How the F did Max go fastest in both sessions on a power track? Because it isn't really a power track. Baku may have a 2.2 kilometer straight, but there's a lot of medium and low speed corners around there, and Red Bull's always done well on those sort of tracks. I don't think Ferrari and Mercs have turned it up quite yet. I think they will in qualifying tomorrow. So I would hold up. I would wait on that for a minute and see how you're going. I wouldn't jump the gun on Red Bull being genuinely that quick yet, because we all know Mercs always hold back until Saturday morning, and Ferrari are doing that as well. I freaking forgot the Crystal Maze charity reboots on tonight as well. Richard Ayoade, let's fill in on the Crystal Maze. Should be great. Looking forward to that. I'll be checking that out later. Any other questions, you guys? Speak now, forever hold your peace. I love that Brian Glenn here is like acting like people don't like Max. Yeah, like Max has got an enormous following. Like, chill. If Alonso retires this year, who replaces him? That's a good one. I don't know, actually. If Alonso hung it up, who would want to go to McLaren right now, though? That's the problem. Like, could you coax in like Hulkenberg's got a factory seat now, but who would want to drive for McLaren? Do you bring back Kevin Magnussen? The Button come out of retirement again? Because according to from what I remember, according to Button's contract, if somebody pulls out of a Grand Prix, Button has to replace him. So there's a good chance that whatever happens, you'll have Button back in the seat. Dixon, lol, Zoe. I reckon McLaren will be a Mercedes car again, though, Glennon. For sure. Last call, you guys.
Right to the end. Whoa. I think I just...
Fair line to McLaren. If they're on Merck's power, maybe. Wouldn't be a bad shout. Yeah, I think that'll do it, you guys. 9:15. I've done 2.25 hours. I think that'll do. Hope you guys enjoyed it. for what it's worth, as I said, if you haven't already seen it, Motorsport 101 episode 91 is now available on SoundCloud, iTunes, and where all good podcasts are available. Check it out. It was King, Matt, and Josh Bond that was on the show. It's all talking about the carnage that was Le Mans, and I will be back on next week's show. And keep an eye out for Bike Live, which will be out most likely probably tomorrow afternoon, maybe 2 p.m. If the early access for it gets finished tonight, keep an eye out for that. And if we do get it finished by tonight, I'll try and get Lewis to upload it on Saturday afternoon after qualifying, so maybe like 2 p.m. tomorrow. If not, we'll definitely get it out at some point this weekend. So keep an eye out for it. We've been running a little bit late this week because King didn't give us the audio for the podcast until the day after it was recorded, which was silly. But it happens. But if you guys enjoyed it, I hope you guys enjoyed the hangout. Have a lovely rest of your weekends, and I will catch you guys soon. So I've been Andre Harrison. Thank you very much for watching. Sayonara.